This is Between the Lines. Today, we dissect the road less travelled.
Hello, we continue with The Road Less Traveled. Grace and Mental Illness is the chapter today. Chapter 49, Grace and Mental Illness, the Myth of Orestes. And this myth that the doctor talks about in the chapter is the myth of Orestes, a Greek myth. And it starts because once there was a man called Atreus, and he wanted to be greater than the gods. He wanted to be all the time be proving that he was better than the gods in many ways. So the gods were, of course, completely annoyed with him. They were angry, and they decided to punish him and curse not only him, Atreus, but also to all the house of Atreus, which was he and his descendants. And Atreus had a daughter, and she married and had a child who was Orestes. And due to this curse, the Orestes' mother killed her husband, Orestes' father. So Orestes was presented there with a big dilemma, because the curse had been put upon him now. He had his mother, no longer his father, who had been killed by his mother, and he had to decide, because there were these rules in ancient Greece, or this code of honor that said that everyone should avenge their fathers when they were killed. And in this case, he had to kill his mother to avenge his father, because it was the code of honor for all Greeks. And at the same time, there was the greatest or the worst sin a Greek could commit, was killing his mother. So he was presented with this dilemma: what should I do? Because if I commit matricide, or if I kill my mother, I will have done the worst of the sins that ever existed. But at the same time, I have this rule, or this obligation, to kill the one that had killed my father. So after some time of deliberating and thinking, he decided to kill his mother, and he did so. And at that moment, he had committed the worst sin possible, which was killing his mother, matricide. And the gods again intervened and punished him by sending him the Furies. And the Furies were horrible creatures, harpies, 3 harpies he was sent, that he could only see, but they were tormenting him and torturing him all day long, day and night, all the time of the day, and only he could see them. So he decided to wander around the land, thinking what he could do to atone for his sins. And after some time of thinking, deliberating, understanding what he had done and this sin he had committed, he said, okay, it's time for me to atone for my things, because I have already done so. So I will speak to the gods and see if they can relieve me from this torture that I'm having all the time, which are these Furies. And the gods decided to take him to trial, to bring him for trial. And during the trial, Apollo, one of the gods, was speaking for him. And in his defense, he said, it was my idea, said Apollo. I orchestrated some things for Orestes to kill his mother, so actually it is my fault. And while he was trying to defend Orestes, Orestes said, no, that's not Apollo's fault. I was the one that killed my mother. I did it. It was not Apollo. And the gods were amazed, because the curse they had put on this family, on this house of Atreus, there had never happened something like this at the house. Never had their parents or his grandpa Atreus or anyone in the family had taken responsibility for their acts. They had all the time blamed the curse, the gods, and everyone else except speaking out loud and saying, I am the one responsible for my sins. So they were really amazed and happy with the results and decided to relieve Orestes from this punishment, this curse. And they decided also to transform the Furies. Remember these horrible creatures torturing him all the time. They decided to transform them into the Eumenides, who actually they were wise and loving creatures that would help him become wiser and counsel him at every step of the way in order for him to have good fortune forwards. So this is a comedy. In the end, the doctor doesn't say this, but it's a comedy because this drama ends up with a good result. And the doctor takes out from here really good points about this myth of Orestes and the relation it has with mental illness. He said that, for example, the mental illness or these furies, actually, they had him torturing him, these hallucinations, because only he saw these creatures torturing him all the time. They were, first of all, they came from this mental illness thing, we can say. It came from generation down to generation because it was a curse imposed to his grandpa and then passing through his mom and then to him. And the Furies, when they came for him, it was actually representing the symptoms of his illness, we could say, his mental illness. And this symptom made him realize and take responsibility, even though it was a long time for him to process these scenes or these things that were happening, these symptoms also. It took a long time for him to realize that he could ask for redemption, we could say, in order to use another religion word. So Orestes didn't blame the gods or his parents or his family or the curse or fate or all the things around him. So when he decided there was time for him to get rid of these furies, he took responsibility and he said, I killed my mother and I committed the greatest sins for the Greek. So he started his redemption process, we could say, or his healing process. And we can also take out from here that the Eumenides, which were once furies and these terrible symptoms which torture him, the ones that causing his pain and suffering, transform after this process, this long process of suffering, but he could transform them into the Eumenides, which actually mean, there are several meanings, but it could be translated as benignant ones, benignant creatures, good creatures, or bearers of grace. And remember that we are in the section grace of the book. So they are the ones bringing this possibility for him to become something more than he already was. In terms of religion, for atoning for his sins and become wiser after that, for redemption. And in more like the terms that we have already been using in the book too, these grace bearers are the ones that giving him this possibility for growth or for spiritual growth. as we have been mentioning. So I think those are really interesting points to take from this myth, and we can translate it into what is in reality when you heal from something. And it doesn't have to be a terrible mental illness, and we sometimes imagine them to be, but there are some things or some disorders that occur in daily lives. And then maybe you have heard of someone having that. For example, the doctor talks about Betsy, a case he had also as a patient. Betsy, who was a 22-year-old person at the time, she was married, and she was married to a mechanic. She had previously left university, left college, and nobody understood why she did that, because she had good grades and all that. However, she decided to leave college and get married to the mechanic next to her house, her neighbor. And they were married for 3 years, and she took a job as a clerk woman in a supermarket. And after this time, she started having panic attacks every time she was outside of her house and outside, away from her husband. And after some time, she was medicated by a doctor, but however, the medications were no longer effective after some time. So she decided to visit this doctor, our doctor here, Dr. Peck. And she said, I don't understand why these anxiety attacks are occurring, because I'm happy, I have a wonderful life, but I had to leave my job because I couldn't stay away from my house, and I feel like I'm going crazy. I really don't know what's going on. And so the doctor said they started working on that, and he started understanding that she had left college, even though she was doing great. So he investigated a little bit more about her, and she said that she had left college because she wasn't really into the fitting, we could say, with the rest of the students. Because even though she was doing great at the study, which is the one thing that she was supposed to do when she was going to college, she wasn't fitting in that environment, because the other students were doing things that she wasn't in sync with, like going out with too many people, according to her, or having too much sex with others, and taking drugs and those kind of things. And she wasn't into that, and she started to feel the pressure from her colleagues at school, so she decided to quit after that. And that is why she got married with her neighbor. But however, she realized that even though she loved her husband and everything, she felt like she was some kind, she was bored, because she found that life was really boring. And though she said at first that she was doing great at her job, she found it also boring. And so after some time of treatment with the doctor, the anxiety attacks stopped, and she decided to go again for college and to start studying again. And also her husband wanted to grow himself, and also started college with her. So everything ended up being really good for them. And in this case, the doctor mentions the same thing, that sometimes we avoid this, we fight against our own healing, because instead of her fighting for her own good, that she was doing her studies and she was going great at university, she decided to get away from that, because she had this problem that she didn't want to confront her fellow students or wherever. She just preferred to come back into her shell and decided not to grow. And that not growing was her illness, her fear of freedom, as they find out together with the doctor. She had this fear of freedom. And at the same time, her illness was not was present before the symptoms appeared, before the panic attacks or the anxiety attacks started occurring. The illness came before that. So this is really interesting, because it's like, when in this case, if we come back to Orestes had this illness, we could say, or this curse, or this punishment as a family. It was long before he was, I don't know if born, but it came in the family already. And this was this illness. And at the moment the Furies came to him, that's the moment that the symptoms appear, but the illness was already there before. And sometimes it happens to us that we already have an illness, and until the worst nightmares, we could say, or the worst symptoms start to appear, we don't know that we have this this illness or this thing that we could treat and grow out of. And once we do have the symptom, we can confront them and fight against that. And that is why these furies can turn into these bears of grace. These symptoms are actually the opportunity for you to grow and grow out of this illness, even though it could be just a minor disorder in your life. And one thing that the doctor also says as a point to take from here is that once we are healed, we start to see the world totally different. We start to see these problems or these furies as sometimes we see them as difficulties or complicated things, and something that we try to shell, like Betsy did by leaving college. Something that we fight against, or we decided not to fight against. And then when we are healed, we see once we are healed, we see those things as challenges, we see them as opportunities, as insights, as gifts, even, in order for us to be able to confront them and grow. So I think those are the main ideas that we can take from this chapter. It could be good if you could read them and see what else you can extract from the chapter. But I think that is all for now, and hope to see you next Sunday. We have just a few chapters more for us before we end up with the book. So I hope you are taking some advantage from this. And see you next time. Bye bye.
Stay tuned for Ulua's next episode.